Well, it is officially the off-season for UCF football, and we have a lot to discuss. Early signing day happened and a lot of team news over the last couple days, and we're going to get to it all. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I am your host, Sean Green. Thank you so much for tuning in, and as always, we're sponsored by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Guys, the college football season might be over for UCF, but it is not over in the slightest. You have conference championship games coming. You have the college football playoff coming. You have NBA, NHL, NFL, all good things to bet on these upcoming seasons and during the seasons. And the best place to do it is on FanDuel. They have the best lines, best odds anywhere, and you have to do it on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and a proud sponsor of the Charge On podcast. Guys, it's here. It's here. It's a sad time for those of you who like watching UCF football, because now we have to wait until next August to see more of it. Now, some of us always, we appreciate a break. You know, I mean, listen, there's some games where you're watching bad football, and in the 2024 season, me and Nick were cooked. At the end of the season, I'm not exaggerating, we couldn't have been more excited to take a mini break from watching UCF. This season, I really liked the journey. Now, granted, I say this now. We're excited about a mini break. We don't take breaks, obviously. If you are a Charge On listener, we appreciate all of you that have joined us in the last couple months. We don't break. We release an episode every week through up until football. So we've been doing this for years. I haven't taken a week off of this in years. If big news breaks, we will talk about it here. But as of right now, we've got a couple updates and maybe some things I'm hearing. Now, okay, I want to be very clear. I'm going to give like little hints, little droplets of information. And you're going to say I'm teasing you. You're going to say I'm gatekeeping. But at the end of the day, some of this is regarding kids' commitments that I don't want to take away a kid's commitment. They do that once in their life. So I'm not going to take that away from them. There's some news regarding some other things potentially happening for UCF. That was crazy. But I will give a little hints to you guys about kind of stuff I'm hearing, because there's a lot of traction. And I'll say this. I think there was some nervousness about UCF, and we'll get to the class, the early signing day class in a second, because I know there is a lot of stress. And Scott Frost's comments about college football being broken, and a lot of people saying he hasn't stopped saying that. And at some point, I do agree. You need to kind of just move on and know that it's broken, but like, it is what it is. So I understand that aspect, but I don't think he's saying it and thinking like UCF is just going to, curl in a little hole. UCF is making moves. And let's start with this. Waden Charles is back. Waden Charles, I'm recording this Thursday night. We are now dropping episodes on Fridays. Waden Charles has signed to return to UCF football for the upcoming season. There was a lot of speculation, and I even heard behind the scenes there was a chance that Waden would not return because Tony Williams is entering the portal, and Tony Williams and Waden are really good friends, and they have the same agent. So there is sometimes when you're under the same agency, and especially with Tony, who's a really good friend to Waden, most likely they wouldn't kind of return. UCF, I'm not saying a number. I've heard Waden Charles is making good money with UCF. They upped their offer for Waden. And listen, I'm going to be quite frank. It would have been a huge disappointment to lose Waden Charles. That's a guy that you're looking at as your offense next year, a kid that, in my opinion, is going to be an NFL receiver. He will be drafted. I'm quite confident in that. I've been saying that the minute I saw him in person, and I even felt stronger about that when we filmed our Meet the Night series and I got to spend time with him. Kid is driven, he's competitive, and you saw flashes this year of what he can be. What I will say is it's huge that Waden Charles is coming back. Massive. And for UCF, the numbers that I'm hearing for UCF, people want to, pout that UCF is poor. UCF is not poor. Now, maybe compared to Texas Tech, they're poor. And yes, maybe in some aspects they make less than others. They have enough to field a pretty talented roster. I'll say that. They're paying Waden Charles really good money. There's a couple wide receivers out there that could be entering the portal here shortly that UCF wants. Again, not naming names. I'll say, and again, I want you to read between the lines here. Read between the lines and trying to figure out what I'm saying. Receiver I was really high on potentially last year entering the portal this year that maybe was a UCF guy or was committed to UCF at one point. There's a chance that UCF can go after him if he enters the portal. And I think he would want to come here. Former Oklahoma receiver, a little bit older, from Winter Garden. Another guy that I think UCF would be able to get at a relatively cheap price. The guy before, you would not be able to get on the cheap. You'd have to pay solid money. But for a position group that maybe you weren't looking at, you weren't as excited about, besides Waden, I think you're looking at next year's roster and saying, if you could kind of load up on some young talent here, bringing Waden back, potentially bringing a couple guys in the portal that I think UCF fans would be really excited about, then I think you're starting to get a little bit more excited. There's a couple quarterbacks that UCF fans are kind of starting to hear about, and I think that we've got a month. Like, this is where I do love the one-time transfer portal. We've got a month. It opens up in a month. There's going to be a lot of entries into the transfer portal. We've obviously heard about Jair Brown. We've heard about Kylan Fox. We've heard about a couple others that are entering the portal. Nothing that has been too shocking today. I think Dylan Wade is probably going to return. So that made sense for Kylan to kind of leave it and go to a better opportunity for him. And I don't hate it at all. I like Kylan a lot. I think he's going to be very successful wherever he goes. But getting Waden was massive. And I kind of wanted to open with that because I think that is what I'm stressing going into the signing day aspect of it. Because I know a lot of fans are underwhelmed. Remember, there's a second signing day, folks. There's a second signing day. And this one, you should be able to read in between the lines pretty frank because it's kind of not no knowledge. UCF is in play for a big-time player in this class. And I wouldn't just say in play, I'd say probably going to UCF. Now, again, with that being said, this class is what this class is. This class is what this class is. And we're going to go through it. I'm going to tell you what I like about it. I'm going to tell you what I don't like about it. But let's kind of go through the names. We're not going to do deep dives, all right? Because Lord knows we don't need, I'm not going to do deep dives. But Amarian Queen, 3-star cornerback out of Stuart, Florida. He's a corner. And, 6'1.5", good size there. Amon Williams, offensive tackle, 6'6", 3-star. Brooks Hall is a recent commit to UCF. Obviously a teammate right now of Rocco Marriott. Tight end, he was committed to South Dakota. 6'5", tight end, 3-star. Noah Mercer, a flip. He was originally committed to South Florida. But obviously with Alex Golish going to Auburn, he now comes to the night, 6'4". Love his size. I think he's going to be a beast from Key West. I'm going to be honest, Matthew, I'm going to butcher your last name. I got to hear you say it. Matthew Akapinti is a linebacker, 6'3" linebacker. I've watched this tape. Honestly, I'm going to be honest. Out of everybody's tape that UCF posted, he's my favorite. He's my favorite. He gives me Cole Kozlowski vibes, and honestly, that's what I like. 86 overall, 3-star on Nights 24/7. Elijah Keys, cornerback, 6'2". You're kind of seeing a trend with the corners, a little bit taller. 86 overall, 3-star. Arthur Lewis, running back from St. John's, Florida, 5'9", Kids Electric. He's got big-time offers from big-time schools. Kind of went under the radar, was originally committed to Liberty, but switched to the Knights. Keziah Charlton, offensive tackle, says he's 6'6". He's more like 6'7", 6'8", from Brunswick, Georgia. We're not really going to get into a lot of stuff with him. Obviously, he's a part of the whole team fighting situation up there. But I think UCF feels good enough to sign him, and I'm sure that they had major discussions with him about that. Preston Hall, linebacker, 6'2", 86 overall, 3-star. Kaj Baker. This kid's impressive. He's got major offers from basically every major school you can think of. He is from Pembroke Pines, Florida. Aldazan Adrisu, he was a 4-star. Kid is, it says again, 6'6". I think he's more like 6'7", 6'8", off the edge. Kid's impressive, dealt with injuries, one of UCF's big signings. If he didn't get injured, kid's consensus 4-star. So I really like him. Dante Carr, quarterback, kid's been committed to UCF for a while now. He's an athlete. I think the big thing is going to be if UCF can fix his throwing motion. If you go watch, he definitely needs some work on that. But I think he understands that. He knows that. And the whole point is for him to come here and develop. But kid is an athlete. And then obviously the guy that's really headlining the class so far is Rocco Marriott. The latest flip for UCF. For the most part, a consensus 4-star. And the guy that really UCF is banking on to be the future quarterback of this university. Now, where does that put UCF? Well, it puts UCF right now with 13 signees of the 2026 class. A composite ranking on 24/7 of an overall ranking of an 82nd in the country. Now, Scott Frost, I'll say this. I appreciate Scott Frost, and I think he's done a really good job in his first year. I think they're doing a good job forming an identity. And Scott Frost mentioned how it's, almost impossible to come in and, recruit for that given year because it takes longer than a year to recruit, and I get that. I'll say this. Once the whole class is announced, then we can kind of go in. But I do want to make it a point of emphasis that, yes, this class is semi-underwhelming. Yes, only 13 signees is semi-underwhelming. What I also want to point out is UCF has signed 2 quarterbacks this class. Both would be the highest signees out of any Gus quarterback signing that, has been, right? So there's that. Number 2, I think they've made it very clear. Going to get offensive linemen, going to get running backs. They signed 2 running backs, 2 offensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 2 corners. They're making it a point. 1 defensive lineman. They also understand, and Scott Frost talked about this, the give and take of high school compared to win now. UCF is in a position where and here's where I think they're thinking. Walk with me on this. It was hard to recruit because you came in late. A lot of those relationships have already been built with other coaching staffs. If Gus Malzahn is still here, or if you signed a coach that has been in college football and has prior relationships, it would have been much easier to kind of recruit, bring in some of your guys that you've already been recruiting so that UCF can get them signed, right? For example, Hartline going to USF. He's going to be able to keep a lot of those guys signed and bring in some new guys because he's been in college football. He has recruiting relationships. Scott Frost and most of his staff, a lot of his staff, but Scott Frost was in the NFL. He wasn't recruiting these players. He didn't have prior relationships. So you almost have to recruit based off your prior experience and your prior, name to get some of these players. Why do you think I think they've been so successful at quarterback? Because Scott Frost and Mackenzie Milton can go, look what we did in 2017. Look at this shiny little toy over here. We can develop you. We can make you the next face. That's why they're so successful at this point. They already have a quarterback committed for 27. So, it's been very clear they've been able to get quarterbacks signed to UCF in their short time. Now, I think it'd be more nervous if in 2027, if that class looked similar, or if they weren't able to get some top talent. They were able to get top talent. And I just want to point out here, again, there are still some guys that I'm sure UCF is going to go after. I'm sure there are some guys that are still interested in coming to UCF. And I don't want to rank this class until after National Signing Day in February. There's a couple guys that still are going to be announcing their commitments. I think those are important, especially for UCF. What I do want to say, kind of going back though, is they are kind of seemingly trying to do a win now situation. What do I mean by that? They understand, and yes, you need to build through high school. They've said that. But I think they knew they already were coming in late. The prior relationships were already kind of being built by other programs. I think they're like, we're going to really go hard and focus on 2027. We're going to get guys that we really like or maybe go under the radar in 26. And then in the 2026 portal, we are going to really bulk up and get some players that we feel need to fill out the roster for right now. I think 2020, next year, don't get me wrong, this is not going to be another let's develop, right? UCF is going to go try and win some football games next year. And I think the first aspect is going in the portal and getting what you need. Getting what you need. Offensive line, quarterback, playmakers, and then realistically, defensively, some safety help, some corner depth. Those are, I think, and obviously some edge depth and stuff like that. But I think for the most part, UCF is in a pretty good spot, guys. And I know that's crazy to say. The defense is pretty set. I don't foresee any big-time defensive players not coming back, which is a positive. I think offensively, you just need to find your playmakers. One name we don't really mention is Day Farmer. Day Farmer was, he's young and he's unproven, but he was out all year last year with a major injury. He's going to be coming back into the fold and kind of working into this offense, which I think will be huge. And then again, Waden Charles coming back, potentially some, transfer portal wide receivers coming, maybe Scott Frost basically said he's going to go get a running back. I mean, he basically just flat out said it. He said, we're going to need, I believe in all the guys that we have. We're going to need to go get some depth. So I think you can't necessarily, I know it's hard to look at the number, the 82 there for the commits. I understand it's scary. You're looking at it saying, how are you that low? If it's that low next year, then you need to start asking yourself, what are we doing? Because yes, you can't be in the portal every year. You can't. You just can't do it. You can't end up like Florida State. Mike Norvell's going to be out of a job next year because of it. You need to develop through high school. Scott Frost knows that. And that's why, honestly, getting Waden to stay is massive. Waden could have left and gotten good money. And granted, he's making good money here. But he could have left and went to a school more established, got playing time and whatever. UCF upped their offer, gave him some money, and he's staying, which is massive. So it's buying in, and Scott Frost mentioned it, it's buying into the players that have bought in to UCF and to his system and to his culture, buying into those players and then going and grabbing players that they feel can fit in perfectly and then trying to go win football games. Because that's what they're going to have to do next year. And for anybody that thought that they weren't going to do that or they were going to sign a class of 25-30, I'm sorry. That's crazy. You can, and let me be completely frank, if UCF wanted to sign a class of 30, they could have. But at that point, you're just signing a class to sign a class of 30. You're not signing guys that you truly, you don't need 30 high schoolers. Next year, I think you need to see at least 21 or 22 high schoolers, personally. That is the 2026 goal. And yeah, you need to be in the top 50. And that's just honest. You need to be in the top 50 next year. And you can't have another year like this, recruiting. If you add these up, if you add enough 70 to 80 recruiting ranks, yeah, you're not going to be a very good football team moving forward. You're not. But you're signing enough guys. There's enough guys in this class where you're like, if he's good, they're going to be okay. If he's good, they're going to be okay. But no, I think UCF fans are just so used to the Gus Malzahn signing days where it's like 4-star, 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 8 or 9 4-stars. It's like, we're not there. We're not going to be there for a minute. This is going to be a different way to build it. Like Kaj Baker Again, I think Kaj Baker is one of the sneaky, special signings for UCF. He's a 3-star, 87 overall kind of composite. But if you go look at the offers this dude has, I mean, Florida State, Louisville, Miami, Oregon, Virginia, Duke, some big-time programs. But, nobody looks at that. Everybody's looking at, oh, he's just 3-star. Because he's not a 4-star like that UCF is used to getting. Alisson Adrisu, again, edge, 6'7", one of UCF's highest overall recruits, was a 4-star, got bumped down to a 3-star. Well, what are his offers? Florida State, Michigan, Syracuse, Texas A&M, USC, West Virginia, again, Maryland, Cal. You almost have to look at the Scott Frost system, what fits in, and go from there. I don't hate the class. I'm not in love. But at the same time, there is a understanding of I'd be more nervous next year. And again, there still can be some additions to this freshman class. And then you have the portal. The portal in January is going to tell you probably what UCF needs to add. If UCF goes and adds a bunch of receivers, then you know. They don't feel confident in their receiving core. They're going out and getting a bunch of guys that can help them. UCF goes and adds a couple of offensive linemen. Okay, the offensive line is going to be a question, right? So those are all things that are going to come to fruition at some point for UCF. So we'll wait and see. Time will tell. My light has fallen. That's why the if you're watching video, the lighting's different, and I'm hoping it doesn't fall by the time I do this outro. A lot of interesting stuff coming up. I'll say this. I don't know how. Probably next week is going to be the time where we start to go through the roster and talk about guys that, we want to stay, or expectations and stuff like that. At some point, we'll talk about an overview of the season, because there's not going to be a lot of news in the coming weeks. The coming weeks, there's going to be who's entering the portal, stuff like that. But it's going to get a little quiet because you've got conference championship, college football playoff, stuff like that. A big question is offensive line coach. Who is UCF going to hire as an offensive line coach? I have no intel. I just know that my thought process is they haven't made a hire yet. Maybe they're looking at somebody that is either A, going to get fired, or B, is on a college football playoff or conference championship team, and they just aren't leaving yet. These are all questions that we'll find out very soon. But December might be a little quiet. Once January hits, things might get a little exciting for UCF fans. I think Scott Frost and the staff are going to get some UCF fans excited about next season with some of the additions, but we'll see. And again, I can't say anything, and I can't if it doesn't happen, then I save my butt. And if it does happen, we'll see. But UCF is making some moves. Some moves that even... I'm not going to say anything. I'm just saying UCF is making moves. Scott Frost and his staff are doing what they need to do to make sure UCF is competitive and in the Big 12. That's all I'm going to say. Excited. Get excited. Get excited. They're going to be doing some good stuff, I'm sure of it, with this team. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for the first Charge On Without a Game in a minute. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe, comment, share, do what you do. We greatly appreciate it. Consider becoming a member if you want to. We've got great content coming out throughout the offseason, player breakdowns, especially when transfer portal comes up, giving you inside and intel on each signee for UCF and where they might kind of stack up. I think we're going to have a good amount of intel on who's who and where they're going to stack up for this UCF roster, but make sure you subscribe for all of that. We are also sponsored by FanDuel, as always, America's #1 sportsbook. Guys, like I said before, the best lines out there. Best place to make any bets, props, whatever you name it on any sport. NHL, NBA, college football, NFL. Every sport imaginable, you can find the best odds on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and a proud sponsor of the Charge On podcast. All right, buddy. That's going to do it. Thank you so much for all the views, all the love. We truly do appreciate it, and we're going to continue doing it for you as we roll into the off season. Thank you so much. This has been Charge on presented by FanDuel. We will see you next week.